So this week I went up to my job on Monday and I'm going to have another shift later in the week. Now, last year, back before this place cut wages, I used to have a coworker they would often pair me with. He and I got along really well. He's one of the older people that works there, so I think he's a little bit he's there's a big gap between his maturity and that of a lot of the other munchkins that they hire. And we would have these conversations that were pretty nice. But I hadn't seen him in a while to where I thought he might have, possibly stopped working there. So imagine my surprise when on Monday we both clock in at the same time and they pair us together for what feels like the first time in at least several months, possibly the first time since they started giving me the 2-to-1 shift nonsense over the past half year. And when we were talking, I started learning some things about him that were interesting. He told me that he has 7 days of availability there. I only have six, which I don't think is that far off because I mentioned that I do like to have at least one day where I can count on to just not work. If you want to call me lazy, that's fine. And he said that in spite of him having 7 days of availability, full week of availability, they only have been giving him one shift for roughly the past 2 to 3 months, which explains why we have barely been seeing each other. And he's not as bothered not as bothered by it as I tend to be because he has another job to, as that one clown wrote, supplement his income. And when we were talking, I was just kind of mentioning some of the other jobs that I've turned down working. I talked about how there was the one job where they were talking about you drive your own car for 3 hour shifts Monday through Friday, and then I told them about that the one I mentioned in my the jobs I won't do video, knocking on doors at 7-8 o'clock at night, just all all the little crazy stuff. And it was nice to just have someone to sympathize with. But I was so captivated by him mentioning how little they're using him because, as I said, there have been a lot of like speculative theories that the people I talked to have mentioned with me. I had one person say that the job was like possibly retaliating against me because I was turning down staying longer for some period, which that's them being stupid because, as I said before, I started turning them down when they retaliated by cutting me from a whole day of work after I stayed overtime per their request, basically punishing me for staying longer to help them. And while we were just kind of sitting there speaking, we also kind of like ran into the similarity of basically getting these shifts now that are just all over the place, right? 5 o'clock to 10 on a Monday, and then I think the other day was like 7 to 11, and just I was telling them, isn't it crazy that you're already getting these half shifts, right? Like I mentioned when I started working there before they did the wage increase, we would get 7 8 hour shifts like per the norm. You show up at 5 in the afternoon, you don't leave until 1 or 2 in the morning, and now we're getting at maximum 5.5 hours, and now it's even worse because they are literally giving us the bare minimum that they could possibly give us. A little one shift that is only 4 hours long. And I was like, that it's not even just that it's one shift a week. It is one half shift per week. And man, we had a lot of agreements on how difficult it is to get a job. I started kind of telling them about all the little crazy stuff with the places that have, had me drive up somewhere and then the manager's not there. But I was really scratching my head because this is a place where the work was kind of, so a lot of people, and I did this, covered this in my pricing yourself out of the market video. A lot of people have been getting sick of, going to these different restaurants that are overpriced. I mention all the time, the only reason I even bothered eating food regularly from my place is that I had a discount before they, did all types of weird, stupid stuff to screw me out of money or try to screw me out of money before I just stopped eating there altogether. But we agreed that the quality was too low and the price was too high. And you could really see that reflected in how few people were coming in there. Like I went outside at one point for my break, and I saw maybe four people eating in there, five people eating in there, right? Just a really limited number. Um, but man, that shift was like something out of the Twilight Zone. I mean, they had me working with a person who I hadn't worked with, and I think it has to have been at least it like if we've had the same shift, it's been at least several months since we've seen each other, and for us to have worked like been assigned to work together, it had to have been at least, I'd say, half a year. Um, and then on top of that, we're talking about just how crappy the place has become, right? Like basically right around them, and they don't even like hear us or care to like say anything. And of course, I don't really care about getting in trouble with them because, oh no, what am I going to do without my one shift a week? But it was almost like the greatest hits shift, where it was all the things I used to like about the job, like the actual like working of there, right? Like not feeling overwhelmed because there's someone there to assist you. Um, Also because they're not like rushing you, like hurry up, do this, and you have like someone to talk to, makes time pass quicker. It really, like, I don't like this job anymore. I'm actively trying to get out of there, and I talk about that repeatedly. But this did not feel like a standard workday. It was. I'm not going to say it was nice, because I can't compliment a job that barely uses me, because that's just like blatant lack of appreciation on their part. But I guess I'll put it this way: it was nice to see someone else who I respect. I see as like myself, trying to make an honest living, just working to be able to take care of themselves. To see them admit, yeah, this place is screwing me too, and to have someone where there was like so much overlap. Because I mentioned there's a guy that also, like, he and I literally came into that job together, and he makes me sick, because, and I said before, there's no reason that regular people who aren't managers especially simp for companies. Like, when you're a guy who just wants to work, and your job cuts your hours so damn much that your number of hours per week is closer to zero than 40, and your response to that is not to say, man, this job has really turned to nothing, which it has. It's to go, oh well, maybe if I learn how to do these other things, they'll use me more. Because that was one of the excuses that not the one that I was with today, but this other guy tried to say to me, oh, it's because you only know how to do this one thing. And then he's over there, both of these guys doing multiple other things, and they're still both barely getting used, right? The one I work with today gets one shift just like me, and then the other one is apparently getting two. And he said, 10 hours is good. It's a stable 10. And it's like, you really see the delusion. Well, I guess it's almost like this. The reason I get along better with that guy, who I mentioned is like one of the older people there, is because he and I are similar in that we don't have, mommy and daddy to like rely on to take care of us. So when our job is basically giving us, hours that are insufficient to live off of, we're going to try to get some other type of work, or just in general not be receptive to getting scraps. Whereas with a guy like that who lives with, I think it was his grandma, he's fine not only, getting the little tiny bit of hours that they're giving him, but also trying to tell, other adults, yeah, you should be fine with just working somewhere and getting 200 or 300 a week, while the managers, make 4 or 5 grand a month. It's like, just total lunacy. But man, this was a hell of a shift. It was something I have not had up. It was one of the more enjoyable experiences I've had working there since the place turned into a waste of time and energy. Because at the very least, I was entertained. I had someone who was like-minded in their disillusion. And it's, like, I don't expect all the employees of places to turn to, like, form a union and tell their managers and bosses to go to hell. But I just like it when people who are in similar situations can just turn to someone else and say, yeah, this is not okay. This is not good. This is not the way things are supposed to be. People are not supposed to have jobs where they have 6, 7 days of availability, but they're only getting used, once or twice a week. They're not supposed to, sit up here and do their job proficiently, and then all of a sudden their hours get cut to almost nothing, so that these places don't have to pay them $4 more an hour. Just it's nice to see somebody else acknowledge that that's wrong. So I don't know what caused that strangeness of a few days ago, but that was the greatest hits shift. So strangely so much better and pleasurable than most of the other days I've been working up there, and hopefully this will be one of the last days as I continue my job search.